Happy Thanksgiving. Now, this is one of my favorite holidays of the year coming up, not only because we get to enjoy the 3 F's, family, food, and football, but also because I believe Thanksgiving is such an important practice. If you are a person who gives thanks consistently, then your life is just going to be much more full of joy than if you simply think about the things that you don't have. And I believe that applies to us as comic collectors as well. If we take time to give thanks for the books in our collection, whether or not they're valuable or whether or not they mean anything to anyone else, but if we are just grateful that we have them because we like them, then we're going to enjoy this hobby a lot more. On the flip side, if we're envious of the books that others have, or we're just sad about the ones that we don't have, then we're going to be miserable. And I see this often in my comments because the vast majority of people in this hobby, I believe, are thankful people. And so those types of people are just excited about the hobby and their comments are super positive. But occasionally you'll come across some comments that you can tell just come from somebody who's ungrateful and they're just negative and they're bitter. And I feel just sad for them. I mean, I want people to be joyful. And so when I see those types of comments, I don't really get sad for myself, but I get sad for those people. And so you don't want to be one of those people. So let's all take time to give thanks for our collections. Now, last year I did a video where I showed off the 10 comics from my collection that I'm most thankful for. And since, of course, that isn't going to change very much in 1 year, and I didn't want to just do the same video, instead, I thought that I would make a video this year where I share the 10 comics that I got since last year that I am most thankful for. And so let's get into it with number 10, and that's Battlestar Galactica, number 1, and a 9.8. So something I love to collect are the first appearances of characters from TV shows or cartoons or movies when they make their debut in comics. And one of my favorite TV series of all times was the sci-fi reboot of Battlestar Galactica. And if you haven't seen that series, I highly recommend it. And if you don't know much about it, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but basically what it's about is the human race, and they've been infiltrated by the Cylons, who are these robots who have become indistinguishable from humanity. And it was scary enough back when I watched it, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago. But as AI is rapidly developing, it's probably even more scary now because it seems even more realistic, of course. And throughout the whole series, you're trying to figure out, hey, who are the robots here? Who are the bad guys? Because, of course, they're like spies among the humans, and you see bad things going on among the humans. And you're trying to figure out who did that, who sabotaged that mission. But it's just a really fun, exciting series. And so to get the first appearance of that show, and of course so many of the characters, and a 9.8 this year was just super exciting. Now, number 9, speaking of first appearances, this is not from a TV show, but I just got this in the mail yesterday. So it's been a good week, and I'll get more to that later because a few of these books are just from this week, hot off the press for me. New Teen Titans number 2, which is the first appearance of Deathstroke, who is one and maybe behind Batman, my favorite DC character. You know, I mostly collect Marvel comics, but I do love my Batman, and I do love Deathstroke. And so this is a comic that I've been hunting for quite a while, and so I'm super happy to just recently add it to my collection. I had to redo my top 10 just this week. You know, I've been thinking about this video for a couple of weeks now, and all of a sudden things have gotten switched up. But I'm super happy to have it, and this is a pretty nice copy. I'm going to send it off to CGC, and it's going to be really interesting. There's a few small defects, and they're ones that I hope are going to be considered manufacturing defects. And so we'll see, but stay tuned because soon you will see what that comes back at. All right, and number 8, we have Tales to Astonish number 93 and a CGC 9.0. And the significance of this is just a classic Silver Surfer cover, and I think it's his first appearance outside of the Fantastic Four. And what I love about it is that it's just such a high grade for a Silver Age key. And originally, I was planning on selling this, but if you saw the video where I revealed the grade on this one, everybody in the comment section was like, you should keep it. And so at least for a while, I am going to keep it. And the longer I have it, the more I fall in love with it. And so super happy for that one. And then at number 7, going back to the theme of first appearances of characters from movies that I love, we have Raiders of the Lost Ark number 1, which is the first appearance of Indiana Jones in comics. And I mean, what an iconic character. And I'm so happy again to have it in a 9.8. I mean, same with Battlestar Galactica. I mean, just to have these books are cool at all, but to have them in a 9.8 is just super thrilling. Now, before I get to the next comic, something else I'm thankful for is that this year I'm a finalist for the CBC Awards and the 100 to 999 subscriber for Best Speculation and Investing Comic Content. And I'm thankful to be that finalist, and I'm thankful for all of you that obviously nominated me to be that. And today is the last day to vote. And so if you have not voted and you want to make me even more thankful this year, please see the link in the description below and go, please vote for me. November 18th, polls close. All right, at number 6, we have another comic that I got just this week, and it's Amazing Spider-Man number 101, which is the first appearance of Morbius. Now, the reason I love this comic is because I love Spider-Man, and so it's awesome to have one of his earlier issues, and of course the first appearance of someone who's in his rogues gallery. You know, Morbius is one of these kind of tweeners, you know, hero or villain. And even though the movie did terrible, it's still a character that I love. And I actually didn't think the movie was as bad as people thought. You know, it certainly wasn't the best, but I thought it got a bad rap. But anyway, because of that movie and, you know, during the comic boom, this book exploded in price. And I'd been having a hard time finding one at a good price because I usually buy from collectors instead of like on eBay or whatever. And people have something called price memory. And this is something I might make a video on someday. But basically, price memory is this idea that a book goes up or whatever collectible to a certain price. And that price is locked into your mind of what the book is worth. And so there have been a lot of collectors that I've talked to who have just overvalued what this book is worth and at the current market value. And so I've had a hard time getting myself a copy, and I'm so thankful for someone who finally listened to my suggestions about what I thought the fair market value really was. And so it's another book I'm going to send off to CGC. It's somewhere in the mid-grade. Conservatively graded at a 4 when I was negotiating, but it could get down to a 3, could go up to a 5. I could see anywhere in that range. So, I hope it'll get at least a 4, and with a little tender love and care, maybe we'll get that 5. All right, speaking of number 5, that brings me to the next book on my list, and it's Avengers number 8 and a 3.0, the first appearance of one of my favorite villains of all time, Kang the Conqueror. As you can see, something else I love to collect, or if you've seen my channel, I love to collect the first appearances of villains, both just because I generally find them to be more interesting characters because, of course, they present a lot of moral questions, but also as a collector, they're usually a little more affordable. And, of course, Kang has been a big part in the MCU. There's been recent rumors, as the MCU is kind of tanking right now, that they might move on from Kang. So we'll see. But regardless of what happens in the movies, I love this character. Anyway, I love time travel. That's one of my favorite themes to explore in comics, movies, other types of media books. And so to have his first appearance is so awesome. To have such an early Avengers key is also so awesome. So again, just very thankful. All right, at number 4, speaking of the first appearances of villains again, we have Thor 148 and a 9.4, which is the first appearance of the Wrecker. And I love this book for a few different reasons. Number one, if you watch my channel, you know that the first comics I ever read were Secret Wars 7 through 9 that I got as a 3-pack at Kmart for about $1. And I've read those books and they're all beaten up, but I have such a fondness for everyone who was in that miniseries. And the whole Wrecking Crew was in it, and so I've always been such a huge fan of theirs. I'm probably some of their biggest fans, because we'll give them B tier villains. They're probably really more like C tier, but they're A tier to me, really. But I'll at least give them B tier for this video. But so I've wanted his first appearance for a long time. I just think that's a really fun cover. He just looks so menacing and scary. And of course, what's the greatest thing about this copy? A Silver Age key and a 9.4. I mean, that just blew my mind when it came back at this. I mean, I knew it was a nice copy, but I did not even expect it to be that nice. And so that's number 4. And coming at number 3, another book that I got this week. So this has been a very thankful week in the comic collecting hobby for me, and it's DC Comics Presents number 47, which is the first appearance of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe in comics. Like I said, I love to collect the first appearances of characters I watched in cartoons, and Masters of the Universe was my very favorite cartoon as a kid. And I remember I used to have to sneak in and watch it sometimes, especially when it first came out, because if you grew up in the 80s, there's sorcery and magic in this cartoon, and so there's, it's in the middle of some of you know the Satanic Panic, and so there are a lot of parents that were really concerned about some of the imagery with sorcery and magic, and so I actually wasn't allowed to watch this at first, and so I had to accidentally watch it when my dad was at work, because he did work different shifts, and so sometimes he'd be working during the hours this would be on TV, and I'd accidentally watch it then. And over time, my parents kind of relaxed a little bit, particularly my dad, and so I watched it a little more regularly. But I've always loved He-Man. He's just one of my favorite characters in any medium of all time, and so to get his first appearance in a comic is just so awesome. And it's another one that I'm sending off to CGC. And this has a number of, again, small defects that I'm hopeful will come out in a press, and we can get this book up into somewhere in the 9s. All right, at number 2, we have Werewolf by Night, number 32, in a CGC 7.0. And I love this book for a couple of reasons. First of all, of course, it's the first appearance of Moon Knight. And when I first started reading comics regularly, like I mentioned, I got those Secret Wars as a kid, but those were the only comics that I had for years. But when I first started reading regularly, I read an issue of West Coast Avengers, and he was just one of my favorite characters because he was just mysterious, and he's very much an outcast from the team. And back in those days, I always felt kind of like an outsider, and I just felt that I saw the world very differently than everyone else. And so, of course, then I really resonated with Moon Knight. And so he's always been one of my favorite characters. And so to have his first appearance is super exciting. But this book also has a secondary significance to me, because if you watched my channel, a couple of years ago, my father-in-law gave me thousands of comics that he had from a kid. And there were some awesome ones in there, most notably an Incredible Hulk 181, first appearance of Wolverine. 180 was always also there, so it's the first appearance one way or the other. And he also had a run of Werewolf by Night. And so I'm going through the box, and I get to Werewolf by Night 25, 26, 27, 28. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's going to be there. 29, 30, 31, 33? And then it was 2 copies of 33. I mean, 33 is a nice book. It's the second appearance of Moon Knight, but there was no 32, and so I was heartbroken. That day was one of the most bittersweet days of my life because, I got an Incredible Hulk 180 and 181, but there were a couple of books like this that just it was so close. How did he just not get Werewolf by Night number 32 and all the issues around it? Same thing, he had an amazing Spider-Man run that started with issue 130. And so I missed 129, the first appearance of the Punisher, another one of my favorite characters. But anyway, I have redeemed that loss. Obviously, again, I'm super thankful. I don't want to... I think you guys know I'm being funny. I mean, I do wish that was in that collection. But I am happy that now I finally do have it, even though it cost me a little bit of money instead of just getting it for free. Now, that brings me to number one, which if you saw my video just 2 weeks ago, I got Secret Wars number 8 and a 9.8. As I mentioned, Secret Wars were the first books that I ever read, and so I have my original copy of issue number 8, but it is certainly not a 9.8. And of course, this is the most valuable book from that series because it has the origin of the black costume of Spider-Man. Like I said, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Obviously, so are so many other people. And it's a book that I've dreamed of one day having in a 9.8. And I thought that I would probably have to spend hundreds of dollars to one day get it. But I got this book raw for just $20. And I bought it off of someone whose brother had just given him a bunch of comics, and he listed them from sale online. And he lived, I think, maybe in California. And he shipped me 200 books, and they were not bagged and boarded. And I couldn't believe it, just in a big box. And so I got this book, and I saw that, man, considering how it's shipped, it looks pretty nice, but never in my wildest dreams did I think that it would get a 9.8. And so when I saw this grade, and I'll put a link in the description below to that video, man, I was ecstatic. So just super thankful for this book. Of course, many of us are in this hobby because of nostalgia, and it does not get more nostalgic for me than Secret Wars number 8. And again, to have it in a 9.8, are you kidding me? Super thankful. But you tell me, what book or books are you most thankful for that you added to your collection this year? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate it if you consider doing so now. I would be very thankful if you did that. If you're gonna give me one more thing to be thankful for, you can go ahead and do that. And another thing, once again, make me very thankful by voting for me in the CBC Awards, and like this video. And thanks for watching. And as always, look forward to seeing you in the next one.